What keeps people in a marriage when they know it's over?
So women check out of a relationship 5 years before they leave. 95% of the work that I do these days involves some form of abuse.
Rebuilding after divorce? Where do you even start?
You start to lose confidence in your career skill base, in your emotional skill base, financial decision making. So you isolate yourself even further when in fact what you should be doing is reaching out for help.
The most difficult thing you will ever experience. It is the most human thing you will ever experience.
We sat down with Cassandra Kalpaxis, a family divorce lawyer with a difference, and Stacey Leone, an agent with her own story to tell, to talk about getting into property, post-divorce, and so much more.
We're talking about just getting you out, doing what we need to do to be able to extricate you from this problem, also rebuilding some of your own financial independence.
I'm Michael Carboni, my friends call me Carbs, and this is Property Now. What keeps people in a marriage when they know it's over?
Okay, start with the hard questions, why don't you? All right. Kids,
Okay.
finances. Some people really keep their head in the sand. Like, this will change, this will change. I know it's over, but, you know, if I just hang in there, it might change. Fear of the unknown.
Yep.
The stories that we hear from our relatives from 20 years ago when their divorce was acrimonious and bitter and expensive and there was only one way to separate. So I think that's a really big combination of what I see.
And the expense is probably a big one. We're talking outside before recording, and we're talking a little bit about your book.
Yeah.
And I mean, you explained why you wrote the book, and I don't want to put words in your mouth. Happy for you to explain.
Yeah.
But I think finance is to do with that, right?
Absolutely. Like, it's no secret. Getting divorced is super expensive. And if you do it the traditional way, it's even more expensive. So thankfully now there is a wave of lawyers who are coming through who are trained differently, where we can take you down about 13 different pathways to get separated.
Yeah.
And the big expensive one is really the last pathway. But writing a book for me was very much about seeing people who were coming to me saying, I can't even afford to walk through the door to pay your consultation fee, let alone to pay for the separation. So me writing a book was very much about, this is a how-to guide. If you've got a simple split, you can't afford to see a lawyer, this is really how you could do it without resorting to the mess that is ChatGPT.
Yeah.
What is the biggest financial expense of getting divorced? And on the flip side, what is the biggest financial advantage of getting married?
Okay, let's start with the divorce and then we'll do the positive thing. Biggest expense is legal fees, but it is not legal fees when you do the right thing. So if your lawyer says to you, go away, I need you to get these documents before you come and see me. I need you to have this conversation at home and I need you to think about what your goals for the future might be as part of this, and they're ready to go and your former spouse is ready to go, that divorce is simple. That is a cheap fixed fee divorce. I can get that done for you in a heartbeat. It is the people who aren't ready, drag their feet, don't want to provide disclosure because they haven't been transparent in their relationship or their marriage or post-separation and they're trying to hide assets. Or I have the person who thought it was a good idea to get separated and then when the process started, they have buyer's remorse. And that adds up big time. In terms of what is the benefit of being married financially, well, if you're with the right person and you have a collective goal and you share the same vision and everyone is all in, the ability to then generate wealth off the back of that is huge. But you have to have aligned money values. And more often than not, anyone who's walking through my door does not have aligned money values.
Yeah, money's a big thing, right? And we always joke around, it's hard to buy a house on your own.
Yes.
So, like, are people getting together just to buy something? Like,
They are.
They are?
They are. I see this all the time. And I think that there are some cultural groups, can I say, who are very wise around the way they deal with money because they're not buying on their own. They are buying with friends and family. They are buying with other people who are just wanting to get in the market and then using the equity and then buying something else together. And I think that is definitely something that's been spoken about and is becoming more of a collective idea. Are people getting together for the sake of now buying property? 100%. Does that give me anxiety at 2 a.m?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because if you're doing that without the legal documents, I know I'm going to see you at some point.
Yeah.
Stacey, do you see dual income couples most when they buy property together?
It's a pretty good split,
Yeah.
if I'm honest. And just sort of going back for a second about the reasons why, people don't leave relationships, if I can touch on that for a moment. at one point in my journalism career, I worked in a very large regional centre in the middle of Australia, and a lot of those women didn't want to leave the relationships because of social anxiety. What would people say about me?
Yep.
And women obviously sort of talk about each other differently than the way that men talk about each other. They hang in there. The women who are undergoing domestic and financial and emotional abuse will sit in a relationship for a lot longer because they don't have the support structures around them. And it's a long way, oftentimes, to help. So, those can be some of the reasons why people don't leave relationships. But I think for a lot of women, and, speaking to my own experience of coming out of a separation where I wasn't married, but we had commingled assets, we had businesses together, and a lot of money was on the table. What kept me in that relationship longer was a lack of confidence. A lack of confidence, because you got to think about the journey of the relationship. Once it starts going downhill, you start second guessing yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about women now, but men as well. You start second guessing yourself. You start to lose confidence in your career skill base, in your emotional skill base, in your financial decision making. And so by the time it comes to actually breaking up the relationship, your nervous system is on overload.
Yeah.
Your nervous system is fried, and nobody can make a clear decision from that place.
I just wonder, the emotion is huge, right? And you don't get into a relationship thinking about an exit strategy.
No,
it's not like business,
right.
You're in love, it's going to be forever, and hopefully it is. But often it's not. We see often it's not. And so both of you must be in positions to be able to give advice. And I wonder if, sometimes someone walks into your office, is the advice like, hey guys, you can work it out if you do this? Or maybe if you do something a little bit differently, you might be able to patch it up, versus no, you definitely need to leave this situation. Like, this is how you get out. I wonder how often that happens.
From my perspective, I have been known to try and salvage a relationship if I think that there are good prospects.
So how can someone do that? What would the first things you look at be? Because I know the topic today is about getting back into property post-divorce, but I wonder if we can take it all the way back to before we even get to that point.
So the first thing that I'll say is you have to have emotional intelligence to stay in a relationship if you want it to make it work. You have to have a little bit of self-reflection. And sometimes if you're coming in to see me and I think that you probably don't have those things, I'm going to tell you it's time to call it and to move on. Because it's often the person who comes to see me and they're so desperate to do marriage counselling, for example, where they say, we haven't done it, it's going to be the thing that saves us. And I think, no, you're amazing. You definitely will be the thing that tries to save the relationship. You will do the 90% of the work. Your spouse, who is going to be there under duress, who isn't going to do the homework, who is resentful for even being there, is a waste of your time and your money, because we're done here. So it's assessing those things. And I think if you're genuinely coming in and you're saying, look, I've made a mistake. I have taken you for granted for 20 years of our relationship. I have not done the shadow work. I'm carrying my own issues. And I'm going to use this time, instead of us being separated, to actually go and do the work and put in place some ground rules to get us back on track. I have seen those marriages get back to where it needs to be.
Yeah.
But if you don't have a plan when you come and see me to do those things, I already know that you're not really genuine about it.
Yep.
So I will call it. I also do an intake when you come and see me about the things that Stacey was talking about a moment ago when we talk about domestic violence. Talk to me about what your relationship looks like. What is your access to money like? What is it like when you argue? Are you yelling? Is there physical violence? Are you scared to go out with your friends? Do you need to ask for permission? What's your role in terms of the home? Who's doing what? Are you able to do that freely? Are you fearful? And if I'm getting answers to these questions where they're saying, well, actually on reflection, no, I can't have access to our own money. No, I don't know what the passwords are. No, I can't go out with my friends. I have to hang up on the phone call to my mum when my partner walks in because there'll be a blow up if they know. Then I'm telling you that we need to start talking about a safety plan to extricate you from that relationship.
It sounds like you have to be very emotionally intelligent to be a divorce lawyer. Do you ever feel like you are almost bordering on therapy or like counselling?
90% of what we do is actually not legal based. And I always say that to people because at some point in your conference with me, you're crying. And I always have someone who says to me, I'm so sorry. And I say, why are you apologizing? This is the most difficult thing you will ever experience. It is the most human thing you will ever experience. So my role is very much about being able to be aware of what that journey looks like, as Stacey indicated. It's not linear. It's very difficult. And being able to understand the emotions of what that person is feeling and to project forward as to how I can support that person. And being able to have a network of people that I work with who are qualified therapists, because you definitely don't want me giving you therapy unqualified, and having a GP who can make sure that they're supporting your health and your wellness, and a financial advisor. These are all people that I need to bring in to really holistically treat you as part of your journey.
Yeah, it's so sad to think about, the am I good enough on my own scenario, to think about the am I going to be financially okay on my own scenario? Yeah. So there must be so many misconceptions out there, and one that would come to my mind immediately is like, oh, the house isn't in my name, so do I own the house? What is my entitlement there? Is that a common misconception? Am I making that up, or are there
if
others?
I had $1 for every time I answered that question, I wouldn't work anymore. And I always say to people, okay, so does that mean, for example, if you didn't work and you stayed at home and you raised the children and you didn't earn superannuation, that what you just didn't contribute to the household at all? This other person went to work while you were doing 80% of the load at home, let's be honest, and you just don't get financially recognised for that? No, that's not the way the Family Law Act works. It doesn't matter whose name the house is in. Under the Family Law Act, it's a matrimonial asset. Yeah. And that doesn't apply to just houses. We're talking cars. We're talking super. We're talking shares. We're talking jewellery. We're talking
business?
Businesses.
Yeah.
It is part of your joint money, because even if you didn't contribute $1 to it, in order for you to be able to generate that wealth, somebody needed to keep things under control at home, particularly if there are children. And that's where I think more and more women, particularly, of course there are men who are staying at home doing these things, but more and more women are now getting the courage to be able to step out of a relationship that isn't being fulfilling to their needs or is quite abusive, because they now know that there is an entitlement there under the Family Law Act that they can get access to.
I have a question about prenups. I know Australia.
You're going to ask this question.
I'm so curious because Australia treats prenups quite differently to the US. Like,
Yes.
you hear a lot of rhetoric around prenups, and I see them quite as unfair in the US when I'm looking at it, because they are like, I'm just wondering how true it is that they don't really hold up well in Australia, and what the kind of how they work here.
Well, are they a thing here?
Or are they really a
They
thing?
are a thing here.
Yeah.
We don't call them prenups. We call them binding financial agreements in Australia. Not as sexy
Not
as
as
a
sexy,
prenup,
yeah.
but, same effect.
Imagine that, babe, before we get married. I want you to, what was it again?
I need a binding financial agreement.
Financial agreement from
Right.
you.
Yeah, which, sometimes is not so binding. There is a very strict guideline as to how we need to engage in binding financial agreements. And when I say strict, I mean there is a big case that we all look at, which basically the judges went through and said, here's your criteria. If you don't meet these criteria, your agreement is really not going to hold up.
Yeah.
And again, needing to understand the client who's walking through the door as to whether or not they should even be engaging in this document. Because sometimes you have a client who is the vulnerable person.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking of somebody who I saw a few years ago now, where it was on the eve of her getting married.
Yeah.
Presented with this document because her fiance was incredibly wealthy.
Yeah.
It was so unfair. When I looked at it, I remember saying, don't you dare sign this document.
Yeah. Feels like coercive control.
It most
Sign this or
definitely
we'll
was
call off the
coercive
wedding.
control.
Did she sign it?
I don't know, because I told her, I'm not the lawyer for you.
Right.
If you do want to do this, I'm going to make you jump through some hoops so that I can sleep at night and be satisfied that you've done this on your own terms.
But even then, might not hold up in court because we have the Family
Because
Law
things
Act.
change, right?
Yeah.
And, your document needs to be pretty foolproof in terms of what the future might look like and all the different permutations of life. I'm talking like someone can no longer work. What do we do around that? If you're having children and those children have special needs, well, how did we ever envisage that might be the case? Somebody moves overseas. Somebody has a massive change in their ability to be able to contribute to the relationship. So prenups in America, very different.
Right.
BFAs here, top end of town are normally drafting them, and for a big reason, because you can imagine the lawsuits associated with them being set aside and somebody walking into your office saying, binding financial agreement presumes that it was binding. Why am I now having a conversation about it potentially being set aside?
Right.
But it absolutely can happen. So the best way to do that when people come in is that we go through what their goals are. What are your worries? What are your fears? What are you trying to protect? What do you envisage your life to look like? Are you people who want to have children? Are you not? Are you people who have different goals? How do we do this in conjunction with your accountant to make sure that we're structuring things? Because we know that recently the law has recognised certain things that previously they weren't, which is now becoming a matrimonial asset. So it is certainly a tricky pathway. It can be done, but it is very, very complicated and it needs to be done from the outset.
It goes back to what I said about not having an exit strategy when you're in love, and it's but some people do, right? And I just wonder, what's interesting to me is, two parties are coming together and there might be financial assets or what have you behind one or both of those. So when it's already behind you, you can sort of go, well, I came in with this, and maybe you can come up with some sort of agreement there. But how do you predict the future? How do you go? And it's like what you said, Cass, like maybe I'm off doing business things and my partner is at home looking after household and kids. Well, how much does that non-financial, how much did that help the business grow? Probably a lot, I would say. And then so like where do you draw the line? As like, so how much do I owe you? How much do you owe me? How do you even figure that out from an early position? Like, it just makes
the benefit of the way that the judges have approached these things in the past and what the Family Law Act now says. If you're in a relationship for 30 years, 20 years, this is not a dollar for dollar exercise. No one's going through the ledger and being like, okay, 10 years ago you spent $1 on an avocado and I didn't contribute anything to that.
But what they do is pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was cheap then. We're talking 20 years ago, guys, for the avocado. But it's very much a holistic approach. So 20 years of somebody working in the business, it started out with nothing. It's now worth, $10 million. Well, other partners been at home making sure that the house was maintained and the cooking and the cleaning was done while you were in the office until 2 a.m. Kids got to school, they were fed, they were educated. So globally and holistically, the court looks at that and goes, well, this looks like it's a bit even, isn't it? Because without this, you couldn't have done that. And without that, you couldn't have been at home. So unless there are circumstances, for example, where it's a really short marriage or a short relationship, like Stacey was talking about a moment ago, we don't care anymore if you're a de facto or if you're a married couple.
Yeah.
We pretty much apply the same test. They are circumstances that might be a bit different. So if you've come into a relationship and you've got your $10 million business and you're only together for 18 months, well, person who hasn't done much isn't really walking away with a lot of ching in their pocket. But it might be the case that other things might have contributed. It might be the case that, for example, in those circumstances, when that relationship started, there were children who absolutely had dire needs for someone to be there, and this other person has sacrificed their career, and maybe they had given up a really big business in order to do that, or they sold a property. It's so niche and so individualized that we really need to understand what it looks like to then be able to basically apply a holistic formula, if you will, to the way that we would separate your assets. And most people get it wrong because they come in with their lovely accountant spreadsheet exercise, and I'm the person who has to break it to them, and they're normally the accountant client, where I say, that's lovely, I need to put that in the bin, because that's not the way we use that under the Family Law Act.
Yeah. And so how often then is it, like they come to you, you'll always be representing one side, right?
Yes.
Is there a world where you're representing both, or you're bringing both together in an amicable discussion?
Yes. I'm never acting for both parties, but can the amicable discussion happen? Yes. Okay. And the way that we're doing this more often now, and it's a pathway that I love, is through collaborative practice. And what that looks like is two people who realise they can't be together as a couple. Yeah. But they know that they loved each other enough once to be able to either start a business, to procreate a human life, to be able to say in front of all of their friends and family, I'm going to honour and respect you. And whilst they might not agree on everything, that sentiment is at the forefront of their separation. So they are incredibly respectful to one another. And when they hit a roadblock about how we're going to do things, Instead of it being adversarial where everybody has their lawyer and we're all saying horrible things about one another, it's the experts who we bring in who give holistic advice. Yeah. There is a commitment that no one is going to court. And if they do, everything that has been said and everything that has been used in that space goes out. They're all getting new lawyers and they're starting again. And through that process, we are much better equipped to be able to resolve disputes in a really amicable, respectful fashion. I'm not saying they don't disagree. They absolutely do.
Of course they will. There's so much emotion involved. Yeah.
But those are the people who compromise really well. Yeah. And they are the people who are really financially savvy around, am I making an emotional decision now, which is going to cost me lots of money? Or am I making a decision that I'm able to pivot from in order to be able to save the money, leave it on the table for us both, and not fight about something that is only paying the lawyers?
In case that scenario only happens, as you said, when you've got two people who are emotionally intelligent, right?
Yeah, most definitely.
It gets dragged out if one's not.
Maybe if there's still some common, so kids are a good example. I know someone that separated from his partner probably 5-6 years ago, and when I first met him, so I met him, shout out to Rob if he's watching, but I'm sure he doesn't mind me mentioning his name. I met him, he moved in across the road from me. And when I arrived home from work, he came across. I think he was looking to rent across the road, and he wanted to meet some neighbours to see if the area was any good. And we ended up having this 2-hour conversation just out the front of my house at night. And but his whole thing, and he said every word under the sun about his ex-wife, and I'm sure if I was speaking to her, it would have been the exact reflection, right? But one thing that was really important to them was that they had 2 kids. That there was as little disruption to their life. So it was important that she and the kids, because she had majority custody, is that the right term?
We don't say custody in Australia. We talk about there being a parenting arrangement or a time with arrangement.
We're so influenced by American TV.
It's crazy, yeah.
But so because the kids were staying with mum for most of the time, it was important that they still lived in the family home, and he would go out and find somewhere close by that he could rent out. And I thought that's admirable in my opinion. And it wasn't until he's no longer a neighbour, he 5 years later was able to purchase his own home and get back in and start again, essentially. But I think so if there's kids involved, you'd like to think that it can be more amicable, or does that add to the emotion? I don't know.
A lot of the time it adds to the emotion. Yeah. There is a really amazing set of resources that I give to parents when they come in, because so often when you've been entrenched in the conflict, it becomes normalised. Yeah. So you're not used to not arguing and screaming in front of the children. That's just what you've done for 10 years. Yeah. So being able to arm parents with the social science research about the impact of separation on children, on their development in high conflict situations, is actually quite confronting for them. And most of the time, thankfully, parents upon receiving that reflect back and think, okay, is this really about what I want, or is it what is about in the best interest of the children? Yeah. Because I've never had a child who has said, you know what, I want this to be absolutely equal and that mum gets 49.95% of the time and dad gets 50%. Like, it's never happened. And all they want is to be able to have a relationship with both their parents, get to see them often, for them both to come to events, to be pleasant enough in front of them, and to be able to know that they have the flexibility of moving through homes as they wish. Yeah.
Harmony,
exactly. And most of the time when that's done, the normality of things settles in really quickly. Yeah. And I love the example of children staying in primary residence where they are anchored, because that's not going to change. The relationship between mum and dad has changed, but nothing else has.
Such a big financial decision, because the father there could have taken, and sometimes it'll be the mother as well, by selling the home, you can walk away with some cash and buy something.
How often is it 50-50 when you sell the home? Is it always just...
No, it's not often. It's, again, that case-by-case basis, right? And who has care of the children absolutely impacts on that. Future needs of the parties, whether or not they work, what their age is like, what their health is like, who came into it with what, who has resources. Do you have a wonderful aunt in France who's paying you, you know, millions of dollars a year just because you were a great nephew or niece? Yeah, me too. But they absolutely impact on that. Yeah. But the ability to be able to make a decision, and these are the parents who I love working with, because Rob would sound like a client that I would work with, or the wife, very much around we've made the decision that we're going to rent, and then I'm introducing them to someone like Stacey, who I can say, all right, guys, this is what the situation is. Short-term plan, you're moving into a rental, someone's keeping the home, and then maybe the documents in 5 years' time are going to reflect that someone is selling or someone is buying, and maybe we're going to plan around that.
And that's so to your point and what you talk about at Sydney Cell. These are long-term relationships as an agent with the buyer. You know, you're helping someone rent and then eventually helping them buy, and it's this whole long journey. And I'm sure we will get, I promise to our listeners and viewers, we will get to property at some point, or property in our podcast. But I'm still so interested in this beforehand, right? So even in Stace, you might have personal opinion, and Cass, I know you'll have plenty of stories too. But say we're at the point where we've just decided, okay, I need to get out. What should someone do in that scenario? Like, I mean, I assume most couples have all of their finances in one account together. How do you need to separate that? How do you prepare? Like, what are the first steps to going, yep, this isn't working, we need to, divorce is the answer? What's the first steps?
Well, I'll speak to it because I'm sure Cass comes, of course, from the legal perspective. But for me personally, when I was thinking about leaving my relationship, I had checked out of the relationship before he did. Okay. So I had longer to prepare myself emotionally, to prepare myself financially, and to think about what those next steps were. And typically that is what will happen, is that one person will be thinking about ending the relationship before the other party's aware of it. But definitely going to see your accountant, first of all, getting some financial advice so that you know what your options are. Yeah. And once you know what your options are, then my recommendation, speaking from personal and professional experience now, is take some time to breathe. Because nobody makes a good decision, again, when their nervous system is fried. Yeah. So I always say to particularly women that I'm talking to, go and rent something for 12 months, even if it's just 6 months. Give yourself time to relax, to settle into what life looks like when you're not a couple anymore. Think about, who is this new person that's emerging? Who is this new identity in me that's emerging post-separation, post-divorce? And what do I now want for my future? Because for the last 10 years, say, I've been aiming towards these goals as a couple, and merging myself with him. That's no longer on the cards. That's gone now. Who am I without him? And get back to your core being. So, go sign up for those yoga classes, do some breath work. Like really, I mean this quite seriously. Let's get back to a very calm, settled place, go rent a property for 12 months, and then start to think about what those next steps might be.
Yeah. You said like before they're aware of it or something. How would you sort of even engaging a lawyer and accountant costs money? Like that would be something they would be aware of, wouldn't it? If you have joint bank accounts, or would you suggest having your own bank account?
Well, there are free services, right, Cass? You can call.
Most definitely.
Yep.
It's interesting though what Stacey said a minute ago. The social science research around women who are separating is actually really fascinating. So women check out of a relationship 5 years before they leave.
5 years.
5 years. So literally just going through the motions, but emotionally, sorry mate, we've been separated for 5 years in my mind. So in that time, most women who would come to see me when they have a joint bank account is seeing their mum, their grandma, their auntie, whoever who is paying my fee for that consultation before they even think about it. There are absolutely a number of free resources, incredible resources that you can get some advice from. The internet is a horrible place to be on in terms of forums. Yeah. Please do not go there for advice. It is like, it's almost like when you get medical advice and I'm like, yes, I understand that happened to that person, but you don't have the same symptoms. It's not the same diagnosis.
Yeah, so no ChatGPT for legal advice.
Oh, please don't. Please don't. So in those circumstances, being able to see someone is actually really easy to do. A lot of times now when people are coming to see me, if they have entwined finances, which most people do, but not everyone does, I'm doing exactly what Stacey's indicated. I'm sending them to go and see their accountant because there is a whole sect of people who actually would never know where their bank accounts were held, how much money was in it, what they did with their money, where their money's been invested. I'm talking like I have to send you to the bank with your ID and say, do I have an account with you?
Yes.
Wow.
Can you set me up for online banking? Like, you've been a customer for 25 years, would never know. So that is actually a really important step before you even come to see me, because I need to know what you have to separate
But
in
hold
order
on,
to give you advice.
speak to your accountant. Like, my wife and I have the same accountant. Would that accountant then, call
that
me and say,
accountant
hey,
is
guess what?
obliged to, they're acting for you collectively, right? But that obligation is for you as an individual.
Yeah.
So your accountant should not be getting on the phone and saying, oh, hey, mate, your wife walked into my office today and is asking questions about your finances. Start, getting rid of stuff.
Yeah.
It is absolutely something. And with the right accountant, normally I will call them.
Yeah.
And I'll say, look, I'm sitting here with blah, blah. We've just got some questions. I know that they've been involved in the finances, so the accountant's not like, what do you mean I've been doing the accounts for 20 years? How did they not know? But asking just some general questions and getting just documents that really you should have that maybe sometimes one party only has in their email, getting sent to us so that we can start from there.
How often do you see financial control, and like what are the signs?
95% of the work that I do these days involves some form of abuse.
Wow.
Like, that is all I do all day long.
Is it majority for women or?
Majority of my clients are women. When I say abuse, I'm talking whether it's physical, financial, mental, sexual, there is some form of violence in the relationship. So being able to be really aware of what those signs look like is really important as a lawyer. And I'm asking just general questions when you come in, because if I sat somebody down and said, are you the victim of financial violence?
Yeah.
They're like, no.
Well, but you wouldn't really know what it actually is.
Correct.
I think people, are the signs or.
So what are the signs?
So I'm asking questions like, do you have free access to your money? If you go to the shop tomorrow and you wanted to buy one thing that wasn't on the normal grocery list, are you questioning whether or not you're going to be asked about that expense? Do you have to make a phone call? Do you have to keep a receipt? Is it the case that when you go home, you're feeling guilty about that purchase? I'm not talking you went to Cartier. I'm talking about whether or not you bought blueberries that day. Is it the case, for example, that you know where your money is being spent? If you're working, what happens with your paycheck? Do you have free access to that? Is it the case that it goes into the joint account and then you're not able to have a say about how it's spent? Are you able to freely express an opinion about the finances of the relationship? If you're starting to give me answers where you either don't know or you say, no, I don't have the ability to draw down on those things, we're having a very serious conversation about whether or not I need to start getting you some advice from your accountant, whether or not I need you to do some homework about getting me some documents and giving you some education about how that is not a safe and healthy relationship to be in.
Hey, and I assume cost of living would be playing such a massive part
Most
right now,
definitely.
because if you're worried to buy a punnet of blueberries,
Yeah.
and then telling your partner that you bought that punnet of blueberries,
It's really real.
But control in a relationship starts slowly.
Most
Yeah.
definitely.
The controlling party doesn't just jump out from behind a curtain and say, right, cutting off your money, cutting off your access to a vehicle, cutting you off from work. And again, I'm speaking from personal experience here. When I was very young and new to Sydney and found myself in a controlling relationship, over the course of about 2 years, he cut me off from my work. Oh, darling, I'm making more than enough money for both of us. You don't need to work anymore. Here, look, move into my beautiful, lavish apartment. You don't need to pay rent on your place.
There wouldn't even be red flags at that point.
Yeah.
You're
No,
going lovely.
I was very young and naive from the country. I had no experience in a serious relationship to start with, as well as, in something that was as controlling as what this turned out to be. Darling, let's just sell your car because really, you're living in the city now. You don't really need a car.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, my parents live 3 hours down the coast, so he's cut off my ability to go and see my
Yeah,
family.
that's a red flag.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And as Cass
You don't
said,
think about it.
I wasn't thinking about it. And then over time, I got more and more depressed, more and more afraid. My nervous system started just wigging out on me. Like I couldn't make basic decisions about what to wear, what to eat that day.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until
When
a
you're unsure
woman
of your
that
own
I had
decisions.
just met came and rescued me, literally came and rescued me. And she said, I'll get you out. And she came one afternoon when we knew he wouldn't be home, and she helped me pack my bag. She said, right, I'm going to sit in the car down the front. you're going upstairs, and if you're not back in 5 minutes, I'm calling the police.
So you left.
So
and
I
that
went
was it.
upstairs, got as much as I could into that bag, and went back down and slept on her couch for 3 weeks until I could sort myself out.
Was she a friend of yours? Like, how did she know
I had
what was
met
going
her
on?
2 days prior. I was, I'm going to say 18, 19.
Yeah, baby.
Yeah.
So vulnerable.
I would imagine too, if you're checked out, like when you said 5 years, checked out 5 years before it's over, my reaction was that's insane. And because I would think if you're checked out, then that's going to cause more fighting and, because, you know what I'm saying? Because if he's still all in and you're checked out,
Right.
it's just going to get worse and worse.
Yeah, it does cause friction, but you've got to try and get to a decision as quickly as you
That's
can
what I'm saying.
too,
So
you
that
know?
5 years, like, so the fact that you met this woman and 2 days later,
Yeah.
she's in the car. It's like a heist. She's like ready to go. And
It
you're
really was.
stealing
It
from
was
her. Yeah.
so frightening. I can't tell you. It was so frightening because I didn't want to tell my parents that I'd made, this mistake of falling in. Yeah, I was really embarrassed.
Well,
and there was a lot of shame.
You just moved to the city.
Yep.
This is your life, and
Yep.
it's almost
And I've
like
got
going back and
this.
saying, "I got it wrong, mum and dad."
Yeah.
That would be. I can't even begin to imagine that.
Yeah, and tough. And so you got to start again
Thanks
without
for
a
sharing.
plan.
Thanks for sharing that.
Oh, look, I'm sure I'm not the only woman who's been through these things. And so, you're young, you're naive, you have lack of experience in life.
18 to 20, like 5, such a vulnerable state because you're just you're a young adult, you're just getting introduced to the city, like you're probably living on your own. You're away from your friends. You kind of have a distance between your high school friends and routine where you're like sort of starting by yourself.
Yep.
Saying we don't need your car, that would have been like, because I thought you were going to take care of me. What I can't. What's wrong with me having a car? Why do we need that?
Yeah.
I think the problem with that very much is this whole narrative that women are kind of ploughed with even from young, like the saviour who will, look after you. Of course, my best interests are there. You're older than me. You're wiser than me. I trust you. So when you talk about the red flags where you're like, of course that was a red flag, I can see how that would have been very much the narrative of, you know what, you're right. Maybe this is a financial burden for us and perhaps it's sensible that of course I would sell my car. Why would I want to make it difficult for you?
Well, he was earning 10 times what I was earning.
Exactly.
So,
why would we rock the boat?
Yeah.
Okay. Ooh.
We've unpacked a lot today.
Where do we? So let's say, okay, we're now at the point where the decision is made. It's time to split. What does that actually look like in terms of like we've come together? Hopefully it's amicable. I'm sure there'll be a lot of emotion there. But, what happens then? Is it selling the family home? Does one person buy the other person out? What does that look like? Because I think that's important for then the actual topic of today, like what happens next? How do you get that roof over your head next? And I love what you said about taking time to rent. I think we'll come back to that in a sec. But let's get back to, we've made that decision.
Yep.
We've sat down. Then what happens?
From my perspective, if you're coming in, that decision's been made, I'm giving you a checklist. And that is getting your financial documents ready, going off to see your financial advisor and coming back to me with some numbers. Because I need to know what you want your future to look like and what your values are in order to be able to work with you to get you the settlement that you want. Now, I say that with a caveat. I can't create money where there's no money, and I can't work off a wish list. But what I can do is if you're realistic and I know what the pool is, I know what the circumstances are of you both, and I know that both parties want to be able to rehome themselves. One party wants to live here, one party wants to live there, and we've got this pot of money to do it, then we can have a really sensible, amicable discussion about how the finance needs to be split in order for that to happen. And then I'm getting on the phone with the other party's lawyer, if I've got a good relationship with them, and most of the time I do, where I can say, look, I have a client who really, their goal is this. I know your client has the same thing. How are we going to do that?
Yeah.
Is it the case, for example, that we wait to sell the home because we know that it's going to get some more money if we do some work on it, we get the right agent in place? Is it the case that we need to look at moving schools for the kids and then somebody needs to be able to then make a pivot in order to allow for that to happen? Are we renting first? Are we renting the matrimonial home, putting the money into the kitty and then dividing it later? So these are conversations that I need to have individually with clients because everyone's goals are different. Some people, cash is king. They want their money yesterday. Some people, I had a conversation with a lady not long ago, we're talking about selling the home in 10 years' time when their youngest finishes school. And then thereafter, the document saying that's what's going to happen, and then the split being whatever it is. So it doesn't need to be right now.
The family home's such a big thing, though, I think, emotionally, because, like, you know, if you're separating but you still have that family home together, or one of you are living there, you can't really forget.
No.
You know, so it speaks to Stace what you're saying about, like, you know, who is this new person, this single person? What is my new identity? You know, for some people, if they've been together for a long time, I mean, my wife and I don't remember what it was like before her, you know. Still very much in love also, by the way, so hopefully...
Shout out to the wife.
Yeah, shout out Tina. I don't know if she listens to my podcast anymore. That's how in love we are. But what I would think that having that asset together, I'm the kind of guy that's like, I just want to, like, cut it and then start again fresh, and anything that is a reminder of what it was, I don't want that anymore. But you can't always do that, right? In the case of we're going to keep this house for 10 more years, you still have an asset together. There's still, you know, and if you have kids, you're still in each other's life.
That's right.
Hopefully, you want to be. So that to me would be crazy in my mind. It's just very emotional. But so I like, Stacey wrote a piece recently, and it was about, you know, finding the right space to support your fresh start. And I like what you said about, you just need a roof over your head, yeah?
Yeah.
So whether that means renting for 12 months and saying, okay, who am I? Letting some of the emotions settle so that you can make an actual decision. And I don't think this is about... I think we get this question a lot, or surprisingly, we get this question a lot at Coposit. We'll have single mums or recently divorced people reaching out saying, hey, I saw you guys on a TikTok that Tori produced, and I didn't think I could, like, own a home again, but maybe I can now.
Yeah.
And I think that's really powerful. But I think starting with settle, rent for 12 months, figure it out, and then take the next step. What's your advice there?
Oh, look, absolutely. And, you know, the first place that you rent doesn't have to be a palace. It can be a studio apartment that's got beautiful natural light, that's got a little window box where you can sit and look out at the birds in the trees, where, you know, you're 2 minutes away from the dog park and you're down there in the mornings with your cavoodle walking through the park, right? Because for me, that brings me a lot of joy. First thing in the morning, green of the park, blue of the harbour, my dog with me, it's fantastic. Get up feeling good. I can think about what I'm going to do with my day. So having access to those sorts of things. Surrounding yourself with good people, being really clear on who is serving you in life and who is not. And that may mean having to let go of some friendships. Because oftentimes when you separate from somebody, you soon find out who your friends are, right? They will either go and gossip about you behind your back, or they'll support your other partner who's clearly, you know, not been a good person in the relationship. So you need to figure out who's in your corner.
Some friends are friends to both of you.
Some friends are friends to both of you, and that's a nice thing, but it's not helpful initially.
It goes back to, like, how do you separate the home? Like, how do you separate the friendship circle as well?
And I think you just have an honest conversation up front and say, look, you know, this is what's happened between us. Until we get the financial side of things sorted out, our divorce settled down, maybe there's some certain conversations that you and I don't have, and then we can reach a new stage of our friendship after that. Find an accountant, find a solicitor, find a real estate agent, and find professionals that you can be transparent with. So to give you an idea, I had a woman come to me just in the last couple of years. She said to me, Stacey, I'm going to be really honest with you. I'm coming out of a very bad marriage. She said, I'm not in a good space right now with my mental health. I'm trying to care for children, and I need to sell this property because it's part of our package. She had no money to put into styling of the property, and it was in pretty bad shape after having a tenant in it for quite a long time who didn't respect the property. So I went and got the furniture, or bits and pieces of furniture, from my apartment and fitted out her apartment.
Well done.
Right? We just took the minimum amount of photographs. So rather than charging her for a $1,000 photograph package, I charged her for the $300 photograph package. Did exactly the same. You know, we ended up getting it sold. But because I knew her situation, I was able to really put the full force of my efforts behind her and making sure that she had the support and the structure around her to make sure she didn't come out second best in that situation.
And so be open and upfront.
Be open and upfront.
Right?
Of course, be careful about who you're choosing too.
Of course as well.
And this comes back to you being in control of yourself, being in control of your nervous system, being calm, being thoughtful about who you're choosing to have on your side of the court as you go through this particular situation. Because there's a lot of sharks out there that will take advantage of you.
What are some like core qualities to look for, or just anything?
Well, look, I think she and I were drawn together, this particular client and myself, because I had lived experience. I know what it's like to come out of that situation. And so for anybody out there, you know, who is thinking about leaving a relationship and you need a good real estate agent on your side, I'm sure there are a lot of good male and female agents out there. But it's about interviewing them. Interview them over the phone. Tell them what your situation is. And be very, very upfront about what your needs are and what you need from them.
How often is it they come as a couple divorcing? And is that often tense?
I've been in that situation. I've sat in people's living rooms before where you could slice the air with a knife, and it's very difficult. It's difficult for the agent because, you know, we're trying to read what's going on without having all the facts. Cass has got all the facts laid out in front of her when she sees her clients, but I don't. I'm feeling my way through the dark, so it can be difficult. And so the best thing I can do in that situation is just be respectful.
Yeah.
Be respectful, be diplomatic, and try and just feel your way through the process. But at the end of the day, we need to have two people who are going to be amicable throughout the process, because if there's fighting going on, it's just going to be a nightmare for everybody. And generally, when you bring that kind of energy into a sale process, everybody loses.
What are the most common fights?
The way that they're going to sell. So the husband might say, I want to go to auction, and she'll say, no, I want a really private sale. I want to do this off market. How much money they're going to spend on marketing. Usually that marketing budget gets cut because all of a sudden everybody's got their guard up with about, you know, in relation to how much money they want to spend on these things. So
there might be different goals too.
Might be different goals.
Maybe one side wants to buy the other out, and the other side says, "There's no way I want you staying in our place."
Yes,
you know, like there could be that deep emotion. You know.
Yeah. And it's not just divorcing couples who are going through that situation too. Recently, I had a woman come to me and said, "Oh, can you please value this apartment for us or do an appraisal?" And I later found out that her very controlling father, who owned, was going to buy the property off her, and he wanted to buy it off her at a very cheap price. So, you know, it's not just marriages breaking up, it can also be within the family itself.
I hear I don't know the exact stat, but I've read that the biggest group of homeless people in Australia are divorced females. So
don't get me started on this topic.
No, let's get started.
I
think this will be where we sort of wrap it up, because it's been a fascinating convo, but it's been almost an hour. But I think how do we help those people? Because, and something you said before about, you know, it reminded me of like first home buyer advice. Like, you don't need the flashiest place. You just got to get back in and get started and find something right for you. So how do we, and it's probably a much bigger philosophical discussion as well about how do we end homelessness, especially for this group of people. But how can someone get back to owning their own home? Because I think that is, I'm not talking about becoming a monopoly millionaire. I'm talking about owning your home as an asset in retirement, because I think that's super important.
Yes.
So how do you start again at sometimes 40, 50 and older? How do you start again? What should someone in that scenario do?
I love Stacey's advice. I can't tell you how many times I've had a client where I've said, you need to leave yesterday, get into a studio, let's get you rented. And they say, oh, but that's not what I want. And I said, but we're not talking about forever. We're talking about just getting you
Short
out,
term.
Doing what we need to do to be able to extricate you from this problem and start finding out who you are, but also rebuilding some of your own financial independence. So
and your confidence.
Yes, and the confidence, so important. So that is absolutely incredible advice. Being able to understand your numbers as a woman is so important and so underrated. I'm talking like, this is your income annually. What are your expenses? What do you need to meet that? What does your lifestyle look like in order to do that? What can you draw on to be able to meet your expenses? Do you have investments that we can use? Being able to talk about the fact that there is absolutely no shame in leaving a relationship where you are being abused or it is not fulfilling your emotional needs. And I think that rhetoric that we were talking about a minute ago of country town, lots of gossip, lots of shame, that needs to go. And thankfully, the narrative is going with more and more women who are standing up and doing that.
But that shame can also be produced from cultural
Most definitely.
groups as well.
Most definitely. Culture, religion. You know, this is what my mother did. It's learned experience. She stayed for 40 years. We don't leave. That's not how we were raised. And breaking down those cycles and understanding, well, that's actually what used to happen. It's certainly not what is happening now, is really, really important. And there are so many people who are now working in this space where buying a home is not what it used to be in terms of the finance approval, the documents that you need, the income to be able to be satisfied, and connecting with those people. So if you're in the space, if you're a real estate agent, if you're a lawyer, knowing the right people to send these people to when they're at that point of saying, I'm walking away, is crucial to being able to make the right decisions.
Do you find that because of your personal story, you attract a lot of people like you or like that?
Yeah, I think I do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a real privilege to be able to share my experience with people, if I'm honest, because I feel like that's where I can really be of value. Any professional, doesn't matter what industry you're in, you have to draw on your own skills and experience. And I think that those things happen to me for a reason, and maybe it is because so that I can help other people who are going through those similar scenarios.
Yeah, I agree.
Because it's very frightening when you feel like you're alone and you have nobody and nothing. And because of the shame, you don't want to tell anybody about what's going on.
Yeah.
So you isolate yourself even further
Yep.
when in fact what you should be doing is reaching out for help.
Yep. Anything you want to add, Tori, before we wrap things up? Anything I've missed?
Oh,
No
gosh.
pressure. No pressure.
No other questions.
Let's I think this has been a fascinating chat. I'm glad you both have agreed to come in, because it's not a typical property podcast discussion. And that's what I love about it, quite frankly. I think if one person listens to this and gets something out of it and is able to make a positive decision for themselves moving forward, then that's a huge win in my books.
Big ups to Co-Posit for taking on
Thank
these
you.
conversations
Yeah,
too, because it's
absolutely.
really important.
Someone has to have these convos, and that's what we're about, these conversations, because it's home is important, roof over your head is important, all right? So anyway, everyone knows who we are, so I won't go into that, but I want to tell people who you guys are. So this is your chance to give the plug. Where can they find you? Where can they find the book? How can they contact you, et cetera, et cetera? So Cass, if you'd like to start.
So you can go to my website, kalpaxislegal.com.au. Book is on there, a whole bunch of free resources and downloadables. You can contact me on socials. People are often DMing me on TikTok and Instagram with questions. I'm on there most days trying to just filter that through. So easy to do that.
Stacey Leone is my name. I'm director of the Sydney Cell Real Estate Agency, and I've got my own podcast starting soon, and Co-Posit's going to come and join me on that. It's called Real Talk by Stacey Leone. But I am a big fan of being of genuine service to people. So aside from the transaction, because I feel like real estate agents get all lumped into that basket, I'm here to be of real and genuine value to people. So hopefully I can attract more of those clients.
I love that. And you're right, Paige will add everything to the show notes. You have been on the pod before, so you might link back to that previous episode if anyone wants to know more about your story as well, Stace. But I've loved having you guys here. I've loved having Tori as the co-host today for the first time. So, well, you smashed it. I think you'll be back. But thanks for joining us, and thanks for watching Property Now. We'll see you next time.
This is Jason He, the sexiest voice in property, here to tell you that the Property Now podcast offers opinions on Australian property news for informational and entertainment purposes only, and general in nature. It does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. It does not constitute professional advice. Always seek expert guidance before making any property-related decisions.